Take that textbook part.
Okay.
All of you are having textbook? Okay. This is what the textbook.
हम सब बोले
हाँ.
लगा
Screen में. हाँ.
हाँ लगा तो
We have learned now print revolution and its impact, you know. Remember? No, print revolution, no. We have learned up to print in Japan, correct? Print comes to Europe. Chapter number, last chapter. No. Page number 108. 10. This over. Print comes to Europe. Okay. We have learned about China was the first country to start the printed work. What were the works? Do you remember in China? China, what were the works? Accordion book. What was the peculiarity of this accordion book? Stitch. Because both the sides could not be printed. What was the print they used? Wood block printing. Okay. What they used to do? Rub the paper against the inked surface. So this all things we have studied, and there was a demand for that printed works during that kingship period, because civil services were conducted on the basis of examinations. So many printed works were required. Then afterwards we have studied about Japan. The prints were there on textiles, currency notes, and cards, playing cards. Then, okay. What was the first, oldest Japanese book? You tell. No. Buddhist Diamond Sutra. What was its peculiarity? Containing six sheets of text and woodcut illustrations. Then we have also seen that what you have told Kitagawa Utamaro's that work, that moving pictures and all. Then comes that print in Europe. Who introduced print in Europe? It was introduced by Marco Polo. This person came from Italy and then traveled in China. And when he returned back, he took with him the idea of printing from China. And that printing was introduced in Europe. But they made a change in that. instead of this kind of papers, they used different types of materials for different sections. For example, the monasteries and monks used that costly vellum. This vellum is the thin sheet of the skin of the animal. On that, they used to write, and that used to be preserved for a long time. Understood? So they made that printed works on vellum. That is very costly. Normally, when we studied about that print in China and Japan, it was not that costly. But vellum was a costly material, that is animal skin, that inside one. And it could be preserved for a long time. One example I will tell you, that is when religious wars were taken place in Europe, this type of materials, that is the Bible, which was orderly written later on. So this vellum material, whatever that biblical document was there, they used to tie and put it in a pot and hid inside the case. After long time, when they returned back, they collected these materials and arranged and returned that Bible. So that much long period, it used to be remained. Understood? So that way, it is very costly material. Well, next is that merchants and students in the university towns bought the cheaper printed copies because they cannot afford this vellum material. Only monasteries, that monks and all used it, but these people purchased that cheaper material. As the demand for books increased, booksellers all over Europe began exporting books to many different countries. Now, once this was introduced, there was a demand for printed ones. Now, what they did, they began to export it to other countries. Book fairs were held at different places. Then, production of handwritten manuscripts. Another important thing is handwritten manuscripts. What is the peculiarity of handwritten manuscript? Manuscript itself is like that only, that is written by hand. It was written on palm leaves, tree barks, or like that material. Okay. Now, when it is written like that, it was having lot of problems. What type of problems they have faced? Only that rich people could afford it. Because if I am writing, my writing should be understood to all. So only those people who have good handwriting were made to copyright. Understood? The word manuscript, that is scribe, one who writes. So those people who could write, copy beautifully were appointed. Now, when you are appointing some people to write it, you have to pay for that. And super skill is required. Your writing I may not understand. His writing I may not understand. My writing you may not understand. So how that can be copied? So that was a big problem. When more copies are required, this way so much written work was required. That is what a handwritten manuscripts. So wealthy people have appointed so many such scribes to copy. It is not very easy to copy. See, when one simple example only I am taking. When I was doing my post graduation, there was some subjects which was not having any textbook. For example, American history. So American history we have to study, but there is no book. So what the professor used to tell, we just collect from seniors and copy it. So when it had to be copied down, that they used to copy from their seniors. It was passed from generation to generation. So if they were not able to understand that word, they used to give a gap. Because they did not read that word. So like that, when it comes to our hand, full of gaps only. We have to fill the gaps. So that is that way, that seniors handwriting was not able to understand. How they can copy it? We find it very difficult. Just copy down that book, that much only. Finally, we have to give on paper on American history. So, here they have to appoint that people to write it, manuscripts. 50 scribes often come to for one bookseller. Now you are giving order, or hundreds of people give order. So it had to be completed within the stipulated time. So they appoint that as scribes. And the handwriting also should be good. Then only it can be solved. It was not a printed work. So that kind of difficulties were faced. But the production of handwritten manuscripts could not satisfy the ever-increasing demand for books. The demand for books were increasing, but that many books were there that also would not satisfy. Then what happened? Why or what all are the types of problems they faced? One, you can underline or you can write that. What are the problems? Copying was expensive. Have you seen? First problem.
Copy भी पहले हम कर देते हैं.
Eh?
Copy के paper.
No. This time, when lot of books were in demand, they used to write on paper. So first problem was copying was expensive. Then laborious. Laborious means it requires lot of labor. Laborious. Then time consuming business. It is not very easy to copy down. If you are told to copy, okay, that UT ka volume se 10 answer copy karo. That day onwards you start crying. कब करेगा स्कूल का एग्जाम आ रहे ये पढ़ने का वो पढ़ने का ये कब करेगा. So that is why it take a lot of time. So time consuming. Armay is there or not? Yes.
I'm there.
Okay. You can see, no?
Yes.
Board.
Yes. Board and the PPT.
Yes. Textbook. Now the next problem was that manuscripts were fragile. What is that? The paper was very thin and weak. It cannot be carried. So very fragile. See, now you are having the notebook. The papers are thick. On either side you can write. But that time the paper was very fragile. And the book also, it was not printed in the same size and shape. So if they want to read, they have to carry it. So carrying also was a problem. So what all are the problems? That fragile, awkward to handle. Awkward means you just imagine if the book is of a small size, you can carry it. But it is of big size, like a big sheet. So it is very awkward to carry. Then and could not be carried around or read easily. So these all types of problems were faced by manuscripts. But the problems with the growing demand for books, woodblock printing gradually became more and more popular. By the early 15th century, woodblocks were being widely used in Europe to print textiles, playing cards, and religious pictures with a simple, brief text. So, afterwards, they began to print these all things. So, the text was not very elaborate, brief text, so that the people can understand. When you are taking about the religious scriptures, if a small description with a picture is given, you can understand it easily. So that way, they began to add such kind of brief text for the religious. There was clearly a great need for even quicker and cheaper reproduction of text. Now we have seen how it all started. Then there was a demand for faster copies. And many copies are required. Now you just imagine your classes started and these copies are not available. There was a great demand for that. So as fast we can, we have to make it. Understood? The same way, quicker and cheaper reproduction of text. This could only be with the invention of a new print technology. So, if a person is made to write, it will take a long time to complete. And it have to be superbly copied. So that is why the print technology was required.
मतलब उसने मतलब ज्यादा लोग थे तो मतलब अलग अलग हैंडराइटिंग थी ना
See, I'll tell you another example. In our that is the school where I worked. So that school, what we used to do that earlier magazine was that a handwritten magazine. So I used to select that good handwriting children from different classes. So what is that? The works are written. You are writing a story, you are writing a poem, you are writing another thing. So these all things have to be written in the magazine. So good handwriting children will be selected. So many children will be there. So their handwritings are different, but they compile that work. The same thing is that different handwriting people were called, but it should be legible, it should be clear. The breakthrough occurred at Strasbourg. This one you have to remember, underline. Breakthrough occurred at Strasbourg, Germany. Where Johann Gutenberg developed the first printing press in 1430s. So who invented the first printing press? Who? No, Strasbourg is the name of a place. Johann Gutenberg. And where it was developed? Strasbourg in Germany in 1430.
You want to read
That afterwards.
you had done
Yes. Not this one, afterwards. Okay. Yes.
Gutenberg press ना
Gutenberg and printing press. This one. How it disappeared? Okay, Anmaya, who invented that printing press?
Ma'am, Gutenberg, right?
Johann Gutenberg. Over, no? Now, it was very interesting how this printing press was invented. There was no such machinery, no such device. So, how to invent it? So, he was the son of a merchant and grew up on a large agricultural estate. From his childhood, he had seen wine and olive presses. Wine, matlab that grapes have to be extracted into juice. So that there is a press. Wine. Okay. Another is that olive oil you have heard about. From that olive seed, with the help of that press, that olive oil is extracted. So he got an opportunity to see these process. Okay. Subsequently, he learned the art of polishing the stones. So one side, he had the experience of olive process and wine. Secondly, he got a stone polishing. How much accuracy it had to be. You might have seen the intricacy in making that gold jewelry. So that kind of intricacies were used. Okay, now became a master goldsmith and also acquired the expertise to create lead mold used for making trinkets. That is, first we have seen the process. Second is that mold for making that gold jewelry. So that mold he used. Drawing on this knowledge, Gutenberg adapted the existing technology to design his invention. We know that earlier woodblock printing, the ink surface, the paper was rubbed. Okay, that one he combined that olive and wine process with that mold trinkets. See, gold that is smaller part also with great accuracy it has to be. So that one, that the trinkets are that kind of small alphabetical design. Okay. Now these two things were combined together. See, design his innovation. The olive press provided the model for the printing press. The molds were used for casting the metal types for the letters of the alphabet. I have told you. Okay. Now, in 1448, Gutenberg perfected the system. Now, it took a long time for designing and developing. You have to understand the alphabets have to be shaped and that molds have to be made. So all those things were perfected by 1448. And the first book he printed was Bible. About 180 copies were printed and it took 3 years to produce them. By the standard of the time, this was fast production. You don't know that the Bible is a huge book. So that much big book was completed. That is 180 copies of that Bible was completed in 3 years, means it was a revolutionary change. Pages we cannot tell, depends upon the size and thickness of that. Actually, that but Catholic Bible consists of 72 books. There is the New Testament and the Old Testament. So some books are very vast also. So like that, these all things together in one Bible. And the Protestants Bible consists of 66. So this book that is earlier time, it was of that old Bible, 72. So 190 copies of that printed books were made. So such a super speed it was printed. Then the new technology did not entirely displace the existing art of producing books by hand. But okay, inventing one machine is not sufficient to satisfy the needs of the people. The demands are there. So side by side, hand printing was also existed. Afterwards, wait. In fact, printed books at first closely resembled the written manuscripts in appearance and layout. Now, when you see the hand printing or handwritten manuscripts, stylish writing, calligraphic writing. So that time, that alphabets were made in such a way. So it was like the manuscripts. But it was not completely removed. That is why that kind of hand printing was also kept alive. The metal letters imitated the ornamental handwritten styles. You know that in your computer, different designs are there. What is it called? Fonts. You can select the font and then make your copy. So the same way, ornamental handwritten styles was used. Borders were illuminated by hand with foliage and other patterns. We know that in this kind of textbooks or other things, that kind of designs are not there. But some books are there. When you are purchasing such books, you can find so much intricate designs. So people order for that particular design. So when that printers are doing that, they will keep that space according to that order that the designs would be added. Understood? Even for that additional paintings, additional pictures also space will be fine. Now, if you are buying a costly book, so accordingly the design also will be costly. If you want an ordinary book, your price of the book will be low. So this way differences were there. The rich people, aristocratic people ordered such kind of books. See, in the books printed for the rich, space for decoration was kept blank on the printed page. Each purchaser could choose the design and decide on the painting school that would do the illustration. It is done not by ordinary person. Different painting schools are appointed according to the style. So that painting schools were given the work. Next is that in the 100 years between 1450 and 1550, printing presses were set up in most countries of Europe. Printers from Germany traveled to other countries seeking work and helping start new presses. As the number of printing presses grew, book production boomed. Understood what is boom? Large numbers. The second half of the 15th century saw 20 million copies of the printed books flooding the market in Europe. The number went up in the 16th century to 200 million copies. This shift from hand printing to mechanical printing led to print revolution. So what is print revolution? The transformation from hand printing to mechanical printing is known as print revolution. Then you have to write the number of printed works increased and printing presses also were established in different countries of Europe. So there was a total transformation. Altogether, this is called as print revolution. No. Just continue. You can. Then afterwards, together we will see. Print revolution and its impact. What is revolution actually? A revolutionary change. Sudden or drastic change. In this field, in the printing, what is the drastic change? What is the drastic change? The number of printed works increased. The hand printing to mechanical printing have been introduced, and so many changes were there. So that is why this was not an ordinary change. It is called a revolutionary change. Earlier, if one book hardly was found, now in the market 200 million books. So that is a drastic change. That is what the print revolution. So what was the print revolution? It was not just a development, a new way of producing books. We have seen earlier hand printing. People used to put lot of effort in copying or writing. So that one, the way of producing books, it transformed the lives of the people. How books transform the lives of the people? Shubhangi, can you look at? More ideas, okay. And like if there was a revolution in people health experience, like how friendship. Yes. So okay, so that it transformed the lives of the people, the thinking of the people with the new ideas and information. So changing the relationship to information and knowledge. See, people began to be curious to know the things which they were not knowing. Then, with the institutions and authorities, all these things together is known as revolution, print revolution. It is not just a change, but a transformation in all the books. Okay. It influenced the popular perception and opened up new ways of looking at things. See, earlier people believed what was told to them. Now they did not believe what was told to them. They see the thing, they observe the things, and they get themselves having an idea. Blindly, they don't believe. So that was the effect of print revolution. Got it? And afterwards, I will ask. New reading public. With the printing press, a new reading public emerged. Printing reduced the cost of books. The time and labor required to produce each book came down, and multiple copies could be produced with greater ease. Now, many of you are using that is Xerox copies. Different types of Xerox copies are available. isn't it? Big size is there, smaller size is there, and color prints are there. So many things. So now what happened? That way printing developed in many ways or manifold ways, and at the same time it reduced the cost of books. Earlier it was very costly because that many prints were not there. Now when so many books are available, the cost of the book also came down. It could be affordable to the people. Those who want to buy, they could buy. Then books flooded the market, reaching out to an ever-growing readership. I think I have asked you earlier, how many of you are interested in reading? What type of books you read? Okay. So those who are curious to read, they used to collect as many types of books and different varieties and different ideas. So now when they are able to afford the books, they began to purchase. Access to the books created a new culture of reading. When you are able to buy the books, access to the books, that is a new culture of reading level. I think in your schools there is a reading day or that. No. Actually, CBSE is to come. In my school, I attended.
That's
Like-
for six.
Library is there, you are going. But another thing that they used to, CBSE used to tell that no bag day. And then
That is only for the.
And in my school, it happens when there are more than 1 or 2 members. Like in first, this previous Friday, we had a inter-house competition, which took 3 or 4 days. And then we had rapping in the which took was a no bag.
so that way you are not taking the bag. This activity is
Not no bag day.
Eh?
No bag day was for them.
No bag day.
That. From bag day.
So bag days are meant for reading purpose. So the students were getting a chance to read the books of their choice. And they were asked to tell in brief the summary of that book they have read. So this way, people got an opportunity to read so many varieties of books. Earlier, it was restricted to the elites. Elites means the higher section, upper section. Common people lived in the world of oral culture. They heard the things. Earlier times, schools also. Majority of the students could not afford the books, textbooks. So they heard what the teachers are teaching. The teachers teach with the books and this was orally transferred. Children used to write it. So that oral learning was there. They heard sacred text read out. That holy scriptures are there. Earlier times, when it was written in, I'm talking about the Hindu scriptures. It was written in Sanskrit, so many people are not having the knowledge of Sanskrit. So somebody used to read and people used to hear. Those times, people were having good memory power. They used to retain what they heard. And after a very long time, when this Mahabharata and Ramayana began to be serialized in television, people were eager to know that what was the incidents. I have seen so many old ladies and all, with a lot of reverence, they come and sit in front of the television sets to watch programs, so that they can understand what is the theme of that speech. But nowadays, there is no need that they should know Sanskrit for understanding that scripture. It is translated in that language of the people, so people could understand. So this way, people, when it was limited among the elites, very limited reading public was there. But when it was available in the market or accessible to the people, large number of people get an opportunity to read and get the copy of that books. Ballads recited. What is ballad?
I shall recount the
Poem which is in the form of a song.
usually some were recited.
Ballad is
It's like a song.
a kind
Ballad,
Poem.
ki ballad,
ballad.
Ballad is like a poem
like
song.
that ballad.
वो
That
ballet
That's
होता है.
from-
Ballet is different.
Yes.
ballad.
Locally, it was passed from generation to generation from certain pockets only. That is, those generation they pass it to the younger generation, and from that community it will go on. So it used to be recited and folk tales narrated. Knowledge was transferred orally. So whatever ways, that is it, when it was narrated, when it was recited, so orally only it passed. Now when there is a chance of printed work, it is readable to the people. It is available to the people and they read. People collectively heard a story or saw a performance. As you will see in chapter 8, they did not read a book individually and silently. Before the age of print, books were not only expensive, but they could not be produced in sufficient numbers. Underline, these all were limitations.
Some concepts were chapter.
And
Chapter 8 concepts.
no, that chapter is not there. Now you have only 5 chapters. No, that was no novels. Earlier there was a lesson called a novel. So what happened? It was not produced in sufficient numbers, and the books were expensive also. Underlined? Okay. Now books could reach out to wider sections of people. If earlier there was a hearing public, now a reading public. So that is the transformation. Earlier, hearing public, now reading public. But the transition was not so simple. It did not come easily. It was not a simple process of becoming hearing public to a reading public, or getting the book and read it and understand. See, at that time, majority of the people were not literate. So if they were not literate, how they could read it? That was also a limitation. That is why it was not very easy. Then books could be read only by the literate. And the rates of literacy in most European countries were were very low till the 20th century. How then could publishers persuade the common people to welcome the printed book? Now, if what is that? A salesman come to your doorstep to sell the book. So By saying that okay, you will purchase and keep it. So there is an art of selling the book. Any product, there is one technique. There was an interesting incident many years back. So I was in 90s. Okay. So one salesman came to my doorstep. He was having that, what is that, soap powder. I told him, soap powder he want to sell. So first what he did, he told me, कि आपके लिए कंपनी के तरफ से I told her company के तरफ से I don't want. Okay, but he told her director company के तरफ से. Then he told her that ये आपके लिए मेरे तरफ से. Okay, it was both. Because nearby one table was there, beneath the door. I kept it on the table, both of them. Then he got the, you give me 99 rupees. It was the technique. Huh? What is that? And I told, why are you asking me 99 rupees? So he told that is, if you purchase this you are free. I don't know who told you to give me. I don't want. So that the salesman used a technique that is आपके लिए कंपनी की तरफ ये आपके लिए मेरे तरफ सॉरी टोल्ड कंपनी की तरफ भी नहीं चाहिए तो आपकी तरफ भी नहीं चाहिए मेरे को ये नहीं चाहिए so this is the technique used to buy that is salesman so booksellers also used different techniques yes so now market these all techniques are the people are running after ads and people are falling prey to that. When you are getting the books or reading the books or purchasing the books, that is not a loss. Because they give you a lot of ideas. It is a valuable document. Now, what happened? How then could publishers persuade the common people to welcome the printed book? To do this, they had to keep in mind the wider reach of printed work. Even those who did not read could certainly enjoy listening to the books read out. This one now. So, somebody could read and others could hear. You might have heard about earlier times, there was some programs called Ram Leela. So that people used to rush to that ground to listen. This is what people who could not read could hear that.
It was also played in the movies.
Yes.
भी होते हैं
है.
गाँव में है
Okay. So why I'm telling is that there is a method to reach out to the illiterate masses. Then another thing.
हम पूछ रहे हो क्लास लीव करके ले चले
What class you are having?
School.
Eh?
School.
School ka?
Extra.
Extra lecture. Okay. This geography you are not attending.
Ma'am, I did right already.
Hmm?
I'm attending the geography class.
He attended. Over, no? Okay. Now it is only 2 minutes, no?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. Now what? So printers began publishing popular ballads and folktales, and such books would be profusely illustrated with pictures because majority could not read. So with the help of pictures, you know that the small children are attracted to the pictures. So these pictures they can understand even though they were not able to read. So they profusely illustrated with the pictures, and these were then sung and recited at gatherings in villages and taverns in towns. Tavern, what is that? Tea stalls or that kind of, in all that corners of that villages, people used to gather. Most of the times, what they used to do, that is one newspaper used to be there, and people used to read aloud, and others used to be the part of that discussion. Nationalist movement time, majority of the discussions taken place in such areas. So here in our place, it is tea stalls or like that. But in Europe, it was bartered, that is drinks are there. Oral culture thus entered print, and printed material was orally transmitted. The line that separated the oral and reading cultures become blurred. There is no much gap between the reading and that hearing. Then hearing public and reading public became intermingled. So this way the development had taken place. 2 minutes only now. Can start. Your movie time.
2 minutes.
2 minutes you cannot.
1 minute.
चलो मैम बंद कर
Okay.
Okay, Armaya.
बाय
Okay,
बाय
thank you, ma'am. Bye. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye bye.
हम बंद कर दूंगा ऐसे रहने हम हम भी बोल रहे हैं गाली दे रहे हैं पीछे से
मैम बोले
हम अभी कसिंग हम ये सर्विस ना
Sure.
काम मैं अभी करूंगा तो फिर एनिमल एब्यूज
ए
हाँ.
बस क्या हम हो गए बाय
Bye bye.
फिर गाली दी
मुझसे कोई बोला ही नहीं है
Thank you.